She's a first generation college graduate, a finance and marketing professional, and a founder all at the same time. She didn't wait until she had the perfect moment or the perfect resume to start building. Shay Finn created Gorgeous Growth because she understood something most people learn too late, that what you're connected to shapes what you're able to build. Today, we're talking about what it actually takes to grow with purpose and why the most underrated business strategy might be the room you choose to walk into. When it comes to marketing, I'm super excited to have this conversation with Shay. She has been making such a big storm in the marketing world here in Chicago, and she's an entrepreneur. So I'm so excited for you guys to hear and find out who she is. Shay, thank you so much for having this conversation with me today.
Absolutely. So I am super excited to be having this conversation. I know there's so many things going on, not only in the marketing industry, but definitely for young founders and young entrepreneurs to talk about. So like you briefly mentioned, I am a marketing creative and community builder. As much as I love to pretend that I'm from Chicago, I've been in Chicago for about 6 years now, and I'm initially from Metro Detroit over in Michigan, so not too far away. And very, very early on, I knew business was what I wanted to do. I had a love for marketing, and I knew I wanted to follow marketing. I like to say, oh my God, I just found this passion. No, but my high school that I went to, I luckily had a marketing teacher who carried the entire program on her back for, I think there were 4 grades that she supervised and conducted the curriculum for. So I did DECA very early on in high school, began that I think like my sophomore year or so, and fell in love. I grew up playing sports. I was a rugby player. I did taekwondo, karate, like all of the things. So I was naturally competitive, but within myself. So going into a business competition felt very natural because you wanted to put your best foot forward. So during high school, I really developed that love for business, specifically with marketing and hospitality. Then it came time for graduation, and I was one of those classes that we weren't necessarily the COVID grads, but we were kind of close. So when we were doing the application process, there were, I think it was either everything was waived or like anyone could apply without a fee. It was one of those years of, yes, please.
Opportunity knocking.
Right. So I applied to 36 schools.
Wow.
And I got into 36, and I was like, okay, well, this doesn't make it a lot easier. And at the time, I was very indecisive because I knew what I wanted to do, but not where I wanted to go. Mm-hmm. So I started looking at different schools. Bentley University was definitely at the top. Ohio State was at the top of my list. Actually, I put down a deposit at Bentley, took it up, put it down at Ohio State, took it up. And then I put it at Kalamazoo, took it up, and the day before decision day, they say, which I don't think is I don't know if that's an actual thing. That might be a marketing trend that I claimed is a thing.
She would know.
I don't know. I'm like, it's definitely a trend, and we definitely, like, you'll see around the spring when all the commitments happen, there's definitely a lot of marketing that goes into it. But I knew what, just not where. So I started doing a lot of conversations. I called a lot of schools, and I talked to a lot of administrators, kind of like the guidance counselors at Bentley and like some other schools. They were very nice and very honest, but they told me, like, you're not going to find a student like you. I was paying for my own way. I was paying room, board, tuition. So yes, I'm a first generation college graduate. Now, I used to always say I'm a first generation college student, so it feels very surreal even over a year later. But my mom and my dad had absolutely zero clue what I was getting into. I had zero clue what I was getting into. So it was nice that I had the honesty from these people around me of like, you're not going to find some people like you here. Like, maybe there's a few people out there, but that's not the common path. And I knew that was going to be the case just with like my background and growing up. I knew if I wanted to go to university, I was paying for it. Mm-hmm. And if I wanted to go to university, it was going to have to be me doing the grades, the extracurriculars. I happened to fall in love with rugby, but at the very beginning, and this kind of goes into later in my story, but like it was very mindset centric on how can you become well-rounded, and like the best version of yourself has always been a very core principle of mine. But at the same time, from a very early age, it was very, how can you differentiate yourself on a resume? How can you differentiate yourself to a guidance counselor? So I saw it as marketing, because it's like no matter what you're looking, whether it's a job or if you're looking for a cobbler, like whatever it is, like you have certain requirements and they have certain requirements, and I see a lot of things like puzzles. So I did a lot of that early on, and then getting in, coming to university. So I was told not going to be a lot of people like you, going to be a little bit more of like an unbeaten path, but like you could definitely do it. So my mom and I had actually taken a train trip. I grew up very close, right outside of Detroit. So we took train trips to the city every winter because they were the cheapest. And I was like, where are we going when it's cold outside? Because it was Christmas and it was beautiful. Like it was so beautiful. I so fell in love with the city. I just never, ever imagined living there. And then when I got older, my mom and I took a train trip. We came to DePaul, and I was looking at the law program at the time. Primarily because my mom wanted me to do law.
Of course.
Right. So like kind of fell into the trope of, oh, like it's what your parents want to do. So then you go, so then you feel the pressure. And I was like, I looked at her, I was like, this is so fun. This is so not for me. She was like, oh, okay. So then we continued, and I was like, this is exactly like, this is not what I'm looking for. Continued looking, like, la, la, la. 2 years later, saw the memory pop up, and I'm looking at all my requirements. Like, I knew I didn't want to go to a big school. I wanted to feel very close to the professors. I was looking for, kind of like I said, not a direct ticket to get a job, but I wanted the professional experience, and I knew to get that, I needed to either be in a city or be surrounded by the professionals with that experience. So I was working at my summer internship. I was like, where was I when I made this goal? Working at my summer internship during lunch, and they knew that I was going to college. So they were very like okay with, they knew that I was hunting for a job in Chicago, not in Michigan. And I called the admissions office. They put me in touch with the professor, who I ended up taking like 4 classes with, and I absolutely adore this professor. And like with everything I do, I'm like, I invite her to follow the page, or like I keep up with what she's doing, or like I have a marketing intern. I'm like, make sure you sign up for her classes, just because a lot of the principles that I believe in and a lot of the marketing tactics that I use or that I really resonate with came from that professor. But I digress a little bit. So put me in touch with the professor, answer the phone, explain the different programs very quickly, explain the overview of the different programs. I am a graduate from DePaul University Dryhouse College of Business, where they have sales, marketing, and honors integrated marketing, digital marketing, and a generalized marketing. Don't necessarily quote me on that, because I did graduate a year ago, I graduated over a year ago. Weird. But it was never a question of I wanted to do digital marketing, so I went that way. And it just felt very personable. And that's also what I use in my business now, is how I felt with that professor and how I reached out, got the answers I was looking for, was given new connections to reach out to. That spoke absolute volumes. No other university and no other professor was doing that. And I had been reaching out. I'm kind of someone of, you don't get what you don't ask for. So I was emailing, I was calling, I was LinkedIn messaging. I'm like, anybody that could help and like give me some answers. I was like, please help me. And they did. So I started looking into the scholarship program, started looking into the university and the different options there, and put down my deposit. This was the final one. It stayed down, and I was like, okay. I just kind of at the time, I was so young. I was 18. I was just like, oh, okay, like I'm moving to Chicago, LOL. And that's what it felt like. And I, for months, was packing up stuff in my mom's basement and like, doing what the freshmen do and like connecting with people on social media and seeing what they were into, and started following the like class of 2025 DePaul page, and very quickly got immersed because I was roughly like the COVID class. We had early connections on social media, so I got involved with the pages and kind of quickly saw a trend of people felt connected in person on campus, even though they were connecting on social media. So when we all got to campus, like a lot of us knew each other from that, but then it also kind of sparked this continued interest of community building and how digital marketing can build on engagement. And even though you're connecting in a world that is real, but like isn't necessarily real, like a world of social media and the internet, like you can bring real life connections and find real value and meaning in that. So freshman year, very early on, I found DePaul Women in Business in the most unexpected way. I was at a like university party, like one of the organizations, and I was looking around and I didn't know anybody. And there was this one girl, she was so sweet, and she was like, "You don't know anybody, do you?" I was like,
she could see.
And she saw it on my face. I'm looking around and I'm like, who do I talk to? I'm like, maybe I mask it better now, but it is what it is. Like you get like, what do you see on social media? What I like display. Sometimes what I display on my face is absolutely like me, like to a T. So I think she saw that I knew absolutely nobody, and I was like, what am I doing here? And she was like, oh, like I'm so-and-so. I'm a part of DePaul Women in Business. I said, what is that? So casual icebreaker, and then we get to talking. She lets me know she's a part of DePaul Women in Business, and I said, well, I'm looking to be a woman in business. I went into university thinking that I wanted to be a CMO at a big company or some sort of management leadership positioning within a marketing company, like still having that creative operational leadership. So I was like, that's very similar to what I want to do. I went to the first event, and it didn't feel like the usual when you're going to university, and it was especially like freshman year with, oh my god, like where are you staying? What class are you taking? It didn't feel like gimmicky like that. It felt very much so like, oh, like what part of business do you like? Oh, like I saw you in my economics class. Like it was very level set, very like-minded women, and it felt very open, and it felt like there wasn't a reason not to join kind of thing. It was a bunch of women that were like-minded, events and opportunities that were on campus or close to campus, and they were connecting you with professionals through these events to give you the skills and experiences that you were either looking for or like had questions about. So it really was, why not? Joined very shortly after I joined on the social media marketing team. The following year, graduated to the VP of marketing, and then was selected to be president. I started as co-president, and then I finished out my like presidential term, so to speak, as a solo president, and I ran it very similar to project management, and ended my final year leading a team of 8 women. It was so many events back to back, but on the quarter system we would do anywhere from 10 to 13 events in a quarter span, and then I ended it with a culmination of the annual case competition, which is a 13-month planning period. Wow. It was insane. Seeing the girls and the team fully execute everything was so beautiful and very full circle, because when I started with the organization, we had the case competition, the first one. It was very low-key. We had that same professor like come and help us out. And then over the years, we turned it into a showcase of what we do and a showcase of excellence. And I always said, like, it needs to be gorgeous. And that was very quickly, it was almost like a running joke of like, oh, Shay said it needs to be gorgeous. Shay's gonna be mad if it's not gorgeous. Like, Shay's like, it needs to be absolutely gorgeous. And I'm like, yes, it does. So that's where the name of my current company, Gorgeous Growth, comes from, is a standard of excellence and putting your best foot forward. So very much so, it's an ecosystem of growth, but it's built a lot on not only my personal values, but values that I think I carry with myself as a professional, and then I don't want to say like I think every professional should carry, but are very centric to community building and ethical business practices that professionals who are community centric and looking to build with intention and build businesses that help others and continue to contribute and grow should carry those principles and be a part of Gorgeous Growth Group.
I like that you mentioned the community building, and as you were speaking, you were very keen on mentioning the people that helped you along the way. And you did mention Gorgeous Growth. So before we get into Gorgeous Growth, I want to see what your view is on community building. How was it when you first started out in business? Even considering having your own business, what was your experience like in terms of your experience with community building as on the receiving end? And what made you decide that you wanted to be someone who helped to foster that?
So there is a few things, because the easy answer is I've naturally always been friendly and bubbly and a people person. So a lot of what community building takes of like communication, outreach, being personable, like relating to people, that part did come fairly naturally to me. But you can either A, be a natural people person like I am, or B, if you are someone that's shy but wants to build community, which is so many people that I talk to is like, I want to be a part of something, or I want to be in a community or build a community, but I'm shy. I don't know how to put myself out there. Like, I don't know the people to talk to. And it's so easy to say, just put yourself out there. But I think like there are so many skills, like tiny things that can help is going to a movie theater alone, going to dinner alone. And like once you become comfortable with yourself, you become comfortable with no's. So that's another stereotype of like you get so many no's as an entrepreneur. But like even in community building, you get a lot of no's, and a lot of people don't want to be in the community. A lot of people won't see the value of it, and you can market it and sales and pitch and put the best absolute messaging out there, but if you can't force someone to see the value in community, and at the end of the day that's not necessarily somebody you want to have in your circle. If they don't value community, maybe that's not necessarily someone that you want in your community, and that's like a whole other rabbit hole of vetted business professionals and ethics and communication and all of that fun stuff. But something that I've noticed about community building is at first I thought it was going to be easy, because you see it on social media. People blow up overnight. People get millions of followers in a day. But I think it takes time. And the more you try to rush it, the less community-centric it feels. Because everybody wants community. Everybody wants to be a part of something. Everybody wants to join a collective or a group chat, like whatever it is. But it takes a long time to build that up. And that's something that like I knew, but even starting my own business, I kind of just thought I'd pick up exactly where I left off during university presidency, where I felt like a mini Oprah. And I loved it. But it's such a small universe to where then when I started my own business, I was like, there is an entire world out there to build and connect, and it takes time to build that ecosystem. So to tie it all up in a bow, try to be as open as you can, whether that be in like your facial structure, the way you present yourself, or even just like sending people a quick message. Hey, I see you're going to this event. Hey, I see you're part of this organization. Like, I'd love to just connect, smiley face. And like, I do that all of the time. And sometimes the connection ends there and you're like, okay, great, we're at the same event. And other times you have a new business partner or a new project or like something that's really cool or just an amazing conversation kind of thing. So try to be as open as you can, but then also be very comfortable and know the value and know your position, so that when people question the value, or they're like, why should I be a part of this, or like, why is community important, you can easily have that conversation and then also distinguish, is this someone that's going to be a valuable asset to my community?
I think that's very key. Firstly, you pointed out that it takes a lot. So we see people seemingly blowing up overnight, but we see one thing that worked out for them. We don't know the countless other things that did not work out for them. We don't know how they went about learning what they did, what experiences and failures taught them along the way that made that one thing hit right that people responded to. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. One. The next thing that you pointed out, which I think is key, is staying true to yourself. So when you mentioned, if someone asks you about your business or what it is that you do, that natural passion that you have in speaking about what it is that you do, people can see that, people will respond to that. So that is how you build your community, because if there's something that you value and if there's something that you're passionate about, there are people who will support that. You have a community of people that is for that thing. The further you stray away from that, the harder it is to find genuine community. If you are able to show up as yourself, if you're able to put your values in front, then the right people will see that, the right people will respond to that.
Absolutely. I think so.
So let's talk a little bit about Gorgeous Growth. It's her baby.
Question.
One, you already gave us the backstory about the name, which I love, by the way. And I think what we want to hear is, what is it about? What are some of the ways that you connect with people through Gorgeous Growth? And how can we get in touch with you for services?
I love this question.
Look at your face lighting up.
I know, it literally it beams, and I think a little bit I'll give my spiel as well, but that was the summary of the name. But and we're not yet a year old, but about to be a year old in July. And I was looking at just how far it's come, and the connections and the people that I've met along the way. And it started as someone who throughout university, thought I knew absolutely everything. I thought I had it all figured out, and I was going to get a job and be happy, and it was going to be the happily ever after. But Gorgeous Growth was that answer of no. Sometimes it's okay not to have it all figured out, and you grow along the way, and you do it gorgeously, and you put your best foot forward. So it stemmed from my passions of digital marketing, community building, and connecting with others. And that's exactly where the methodology came. So here comes the spiel. We are a professional growth agency rooted in sustainability and ethical business practices. So we operate under a methodology called the Gorgie Method, which is set, scale, match. You come in to our agency, we see where you are, what your goals are, where what tier of business, if you're starting out, if you're an experienced professional, and then map you from there. So whether that is our consulting, so we start everyone out with a power hour. It's a social media audit and strategy plan, where we come in, audit with our analytics extension that was built by my business partner, Nico. And then we give a third-party explanation of how it's coming off from a marketer's perspective, and then give a strategy booklet of, okay, now these are content tips, strategies, resources, tools, and tips that you can use to market yourself, get yourself ready for the next stage of Gorgeous Growth, which is going to be the set, scale, match method, as well as make it so much easier, marketing, content, connection, community. It doesn't need to be confusing. So that's where our consulting comes in, as well as our digital tools. So event planners, project management templates, content planners, and strategy. And then the big part, which is the agency network, is if you're looking for someone, great, let's look at who we have in our agency. Someone who's a vetted professional, someone that's committed to ethical business practices, and someone that's ready to work with you and really understand your pain points and journey and is excited. We'll look to see who's in our agency if we can't help you with our in-house specialists.
Amazing. And you covered a lot. I feel like that when it comes to business and we have all these questions, right? You don't have to do it alone. You don't have to know everything. And Gorgeous Growth is here to help you with all of those stages. So amazing. I feel like hearing the story of how you got started, first of all, how you ended up in Chicago.
Yeah.
Right?
I was like, okay. I packed a disco ball that I worked at a retail store and they had the extra, so I was like, I'll take that. Packed my disco ball.
Where is the disco ball now?
It did like end up shattering.
Oh.
So like some things, like when you talk about liability and risk, the giant disco ball from American Eagle did have a really big like risk and liability, so that was recycled sophomore year. But the sentiment of come with a disco ball, it's gonna be a good time, not having an absolute clue of what the next 4 years was gonna be, and really got hit by a truck.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I feel like the sentiment of it all ends up perfectly fine. You figure out your timeline, you figure out your path of what you want to do, who you want to surround yourself with, and who you want to be. You don't want to be someone you're not, but you definitely want to emulate the best version of yourself.
Right.
So it all starts with the disco ball.
I mean, the disco ball could be the big deal here. That could be like the underscore of your entire story, right?
It might just be, and you know what? Like, I feel like this is the first time I've remembered the disco ball in a long time. So I was like, you know what? I think so.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll make like a video or something on it. But like, it really was. I've done a lot, especially as like the agency grows to be almost a year old. There's a lot of reflecting on like, what is in my ecosystem of growth, which is Gorgeous Growth, and like, how can I help provide those tools, help make those accessible and get those out there, as well as how am I doing as a professional? Like, I started this, and it's still very much so true. Whatever I put on social media, whatever I put out there, it has to be, it may be like a mood or like a feeling that might change, but the sentiment has to be something that I agree with, and like it has to be a very like true, authentic version of me. So over the past year, like I always just like to make sure whatever social media, marketing, business that I do is a reflection of myself and Gorgeous Growth. I know a lot of people are like, the founder is different from the business, and that was so true, but a lot of the values that I uphold are values that are very much so within the foundation of Gorgeous Growth.
Right. And I think when it's how you built your business. So that is what the messaging is. This business is my story, and this is what I want to give to you. So I think being mindful is a great way for people to see that there is a real person behind the brand who cares about them also. Right. So if you could leave a message, let's say 2 tips for someone who does not necessarily have to be in marketing, but someone who is navigating that question of what is my next step? What is the thing that I want to do, whether it's college applications or should I start this business? Should I get into this community? What is something that you would want to share to that person now, looking back in hindsight, where you were when that was your position, where you are now? And what would you say to someone who is questioning, how do I show up in business?
Yeah.
What's the one thing that I should be mindful of in how I represent myself publicly?
I think 2 things. One is that I've said for years now, because I had to experience it to believe it, but ignore everybody else. Like, what you're doing is fabulous, but it's not my timeline, it's not my goal, and it's not my mission. So absolutely cheer everyone on. Don't have your head in the sand, but ignore everybody else. It doesn't matter what university they're going to, what course they're taking, or what position that they're starting, because that is their timeline and their story. So even as a marketer, like, I'm thinking about like how stories connect and bleed into one another, but just as an individual, like, it really doesn't matter, because you'll piece it together and you'll find your own path. And that's something that I've always been a big believer in, especially basic-ish major with digital marketing, but I found my niche and had a minor in cannabis studies, and so like really made something my own. And that's a little bit more of a tangent, but just a little bit of example of my friends did marketing and sales, another friend did marketing and English, and those are all great because one wanted to go into literary science, one wanted to go into sales marketing. So like your path only makes sense for you. So if you try to follow someone else's footsteps, even like I always joke that I want to be a little Oprah. If I were to follow verbatim what Oprah did, I'd probably be miserable.
Yeah.
But that kind of brings me to my second one of like a newer piece of advice that I think is important, that not necessarily a newer piece of advice, but something that is new to my repertoire of kind of like things to always remember, is everything is captured. And that's from a digital marketing perspective of your drafts are never deleted, and you know, like AI compliance, like you can dig anything up. So if you are going to be in business, I don't want to say it's similar to politics, but I think in any industry, business, politics, cosmetology, and I just went on a whole rampage on TikTok about this, of customer service, and like, have we forgotten about that, and a whole like thing of like since post-COVID. But how you represent yourself, you should represent yourself the exact same as you do in the office, at home, in public. At home is maybe not at home, but you should represent yourself the same way at the office, in public, when you go out to eat. Even if you go out to have a fun time, note that your perception is not necessarily important, but you want to be who you put yourself out there to be. So don't necessarily change what you do or prohibit your daily action, and that's not the moral of the story. The moral of the story is your brand in business, your brand, your public persona, your professional persona isn't limited to what you post on social media, and it's not limited to how you behave in the workplace. It's the overall picture. So if you want to be an ethical business person, you first have to be an ethical person. Right. And it's that kind of thing. If you want to be like a world-class hairstylist, you have to start with treating and listening to your customers. So I think that's a very long-winded spiel of A, ignore everybody else and follow your own path, but also B, note along that path, it's so okay to change. The values will change, your goals will change, but along the way, holding the sentiments and holding the, I don't like the word image, but kind of holding a valued perception of yourself. It doesn't have to be the same perception. One day you can say you're a marketer, the next day you can say you're a content creator, the next day you can say you're a chef. But if it is true to what you do, true to your beliefs, and true to your mission, I feel like that's a good way to lead, no matter if you're a freshman, if you're an executive, or whatever it is.
Absolutely. Find the best version of yourself and be that person all the time.
Absolutely.
These tips, these are things that we hear them a lot, but they're things that are important. They're things that are very significant, and they make the difference, right? We don't want people to see us one way on social media, and then when they meet us in person, we're not that person, and then we wonder why we can't get to the next step. So thank you so much, Shay, for sharing your story with us, letting us know all about Gorgeous Growth. Speaking of Gorgeous Growth, how can someone get in touch with you if they want to check out your services, if they want to learn more about what you're doing or get involved?
Absolutely. So right on our website, I like to say it's the hub of ecosystem. We have everything on there, but there's a contact tab. Select what you're looking for, your stage of growth, and then we'll get in touch from there.
Beautiful. Gorgeous.
Absolutely gorgeous. There you go.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you guys for listening to us. I hope you go and support Shay, Gorgeous Growth. Let everything out there be gorgeous, and let's all get to that next level together. This is Inner Access. We value your time and your attention here, and stay tuned for what we have next. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.